making a list of those who traumatized us. Alright, so according to AA, you make a list of who you need to make amends to. This has, everything you've done up until this point has been working up to where you can get to the place of, you've been working on self-forgiveness so that you can work towards forgiving those who traumatized you or contributed to your trauma. So as you go through this, and as you think about this, and as you prepare to start making your list, it's when you make a list of, and you may not be ready to do this yet, it's okay if you're not, but make a list of all persons who have contributed to our traumas and became willing to forgive them all. Alright, so are you in that place to where if you can make that list, and as you go through that list, because it's going to be one of the most emotional things you've ever done. Because when you start getting specific with the people who you feel like contributed to your trauma or caused your trauma in some way, all those feelings and emotions are going to come up. Okay? So, and you have learned up until this point, it's not so much important why something happened to you as it is the emotional attachment or the cause of the emotions or shortcomings or things that you've had to struggle through is important. The why of why it happened is not as important as working through and processing the result of what happened. Alright, so this is the reason we've been preparing up until this point. Alright, so self-forgiveness, you can say that you forgive another person. We've kind of talked about that. Sometimes it's easier to forgive somebody else before it is to forgive yourself. But in that moment, as you're doing this, you'll realize specifically, because we can do anything in our head, but when we get specific enough with it and start writing these things down, just writing this down can be triggering. Alright, so we've got to be in a place of prayer and a place in our spiritual walk as we're in a place in our trauma healing to be able to write this down and go, okay, this triggered this emotion, but it's okay. I'm not okay, but it's okay that it came up for me. It's okay that it triggered me. So what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with what I'm feeling in this moment? Because I wrote this particular person down. And you don't have to get specific with what they did to you. You're just writing down the person. But just writing their name down can be triggering. Or their relationship to you. Or the circumstances of which you know them can be triggering to you. So what are you going to do with the emotions? What are you going to do with the feelings once those are brought forth because you wrote that name down?
Give Jesus.
Okay. That's eventually what we want to do. That's
Right.
eventually what we're trying to get to.
Right.
All right. So, but does our carnal self allow us just to hand it over when we're triggered in that moment?
It's something that you would have to make yourself.
Well, you don't want to make yourself. What you want to do is help yourself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all right, so it's a matter, and remember, our language is, we're not dealing with or getting over.
Right.
It is, we're walking through our perception, all right, so we're grabbing on spiritually to process, but we remember, when you're doing this is our carnal mind trying to grasp the concept. So when you throw flesh in, sometimes it's more difficult to let the spirit take over to walk us through this because our carnal mind, our carnal body's triggered in all these feelings and emotions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Alright? So, this is a lot of prayer as you're doing this. But remember, no matter, sometimes in that moment, what do we have to do? We have to crucify the flesh. Alright? So it's like, Lord, in this moment, I realize that I've got to try to get my flesh out of this, but in this moment, in this step, I need to allow my flesh to be there because I've got to allow my flesh to process what this brings up, but I need your strength to help me get through it.
It's almost like you have to start separating the two, what the incident triggered and that trauma that it created. It's almost like having to separate that with allowing the Lord to start entering into that place so that it can be healed. But it's definitely, to me, going through the trauma I went through this past week, that I had to separate that emotion out so that I could allow the Lord to heal it up, because I felt myself shutting back down, and I didn't want that.
All right, so what have we learned about what is the basis of most everything that we feel? What is it usually built on? Fear? That's exactly right. So everything is built on fear. And as a result of that fear comes anxiety, comes depression, okay, mood swings, that's a big one. So all of this, and especially anxiety, is all fear-based. It's all fear, all right? So what does the Bible tell us about fear? The Lord says, I don't cause a spirit of fear.
Right.
All right? So in our spiritual realm, if we're in this fear and it causes this anxiety, that anxiety or this fear is a distraction, then we start questioning God, why did I have to, again, we'll go back to, why did I have to go through this? Why did I have to experience this? Why is this present in my life? But remember, this fear is false. I have to write down. Evidence. I can't spell this one, so. Evidence. Appearing real. Alright, so I'm going to take you back again and remind you when Satan tempted Eve, how did he tempt her? What did he tell her when he asked her? He says, can you not eat of everything in the garden? And what was Eve's response? Yes, I can. We can, except this. And so when she said, except this, because God says if we eat of this, that we would surely die. So what was Satan's response to her, or the serpent's response to her?
She will not surely die.
Their eyes would be open. That their eyes would be open.
Right.
Right? So he got her to question herself and what God said. Let's question what God said. Because he said, and she said, no. He said, no, that's not true. All right? So he presented to her something that looked a different way than what it actually was. All right? So what happened immediately after they ate? They hid. Their eyes was open.
They ran from God.
And they became, so when God came back to the garden, he called out for Adam. He says, Adam, because he never had to call for him. That was the first time that God ever had to say Adam's name to find out where he was. And he says, Adam, where are you? He asked him, he says, where were you when I called you? And what was the very first thing that Adam said? We were afraid because we were naked and we hid ourselves. Right? So the evidence that the serpent presented was, no, you're not going to die. No. Got her to question God, got her to question her obedience to God, and presented it in such a way to, it's like, this is okay. You know, but the very first thing it caused was fear. So, what will happen, what do you think will happen when you start connecting on all of these emotions if you're triggered in doing this exercise? What's the very first thing that you're going to feel? Or could feel? It's anxiety, which is based in fear.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Like in all my years in AA, wouldn't it be better to work this with another trusted person who's been through it so that you're not alone? Because the way I'm seeing this and from past knowledge, if you're going to be doing this, you really need to have another person, a sponsor or a trusted friend sitting there with you so that I myself don't get all discombobulated.
In your head?
Yeah, and I have somebody to help reel me back in and work this. Because this
And that's
is a
the
very
reason everybody's learning all of
Yeah.
these steps, is because as they work these steps and they get into that place, then that's what they're doing, being able to learn is how to help others, pull others through what, but you're exactly right. Where I stay at right now, my friend is good about keeping me grounded. She's really good about keeping me grounded. So it seems like when I'm having moments, she's strong, and when she's having moments, I'm strong. So it's like this partnership of keeping each other grounded, because we're able to challenge one another, and it's like, so this was my week, this past week, to be in that place. And so she's challenged me into looking at things and said, okay, all right, not giving me the words, but saying, so tell me where you are. What's happening? What do you relate this back to? Because everything that you've been through in your life, every trauma that you've been through in your life, affects the way you think about every situation that you're in. Right? So, a couple of big things that I've learned about myself over the last little bit. I have such a difficult time letting go, and I'm still working on that. I am still in that place of learning, because there's one particular situation that I haven't let go of. And so in this process that she's doing with me and has done with me over a few days was, okay, let's see where it comes from. Where is that coming from? Why can you not let go? You know what it went back to? Part of where it went back to was the relationship I had with my dad. So the church and my dad keeps coming up in all of this in some variation or the other. So my dad kept coming up, because I tried so hard to hang on to a relationship that he didn't want. I wanted it, but he didn't. So there's that played in my mind that I couldn't just let that go and be okay and be at peace with that. So I've carried it over through my lifetime into other relationships. Church, friends, people I've cared about, that I've carried on more on my end than they did on theirs. And being able to walk away from that situation. So it's like, so this relationship is really not the target. I've gotta be able to go all the way back here and be able to let go of my dad. Because I couldn't let go of that, played a part in me not being able to let go here. Remember, your current situation is never your current situation. Your current situation stems from back here.
And is that, I don't say normal, but did most everybody do that?
And the more intense the trauma and the more intense or consistent traumas that happen in our life, the more likely that we're gonna be more triggered here. Our current situation does not ever have anything to do with the current situation. It always stems from the past. All right, my second biggest issue is I have an issue with money. Not keeping money, but feeling like I will never have money. That I will never be in that place of being okay. I'm scared of it. If I have it, I will hang on to it until somebody said she'll hang on to something, she still got the original $50 she had from when she was 10. You'd think that through that I could have saved money, but it didn't. I procrastinate in paying things sometimes because I'm scared that what little money I have, if I let go of it, I'm not gonna have any money to replace it. So there is a relationship there with money that stems from something back here. That came from my dad too. And I'll tell you how that came about. I think I've kind of briefly mentioned them before, but a couple that I have considered my spiritual parents in the past. When the documentary came out, they wanted to watch it with me. They wanted me to be with them when they watched it, so they wouldn't see it. I had already seen it one time when it first came out, and I told God I'd never watch it again. But out of respect for them, it's like, okay, I'm gonna sit through this with them because they want me present when they do it. But they didn't watch it just to be able to watch it. What they did is they watched it because spiritually they were looking beyond what they were seeing on TV to look underneath some, because they know me so well, that underneath spiritual stuff. So every once in a while he would stop the TV. And he would, and it was like I was a fly in the room. He didn't always address them to me, the questions to me, he addressed them to his wife. And he says, do you notice what happened right there? And every once in a while, I just look at him and it's like, okay, where's he going with this? Because I'd never looked at it from that perspective. So he would stop it and he would process it with me. Then he would watch that we would watch all the way through, and then at the end of all 3 episodes, he stopped and he says, okay, all right, now you tell me what you see. And it's like, do you know how hard that was for me to watch that again? And he says, I know it was. And he says, but that's the reason we're processing this. This is the reason spiritually we're looking at this. My dad could never hold a steady, consistent job. He always went out searching for money that he could borrow from people. Never had an adequate home to live in, never would maintain anything. So his relationship with money, spiritually, on a genetic level, spiritually, he passed down. Because none of his kids was able to. My youngest brother, as much as I don't like or don't care for my sister-in-law, she has been something steady and consistent that he's been able, because they've got a good home now. She manages money, all the bills are paid, But if he had to do it on his own, I don't know that he could have the strength to do it on his own. But this is what my dad passed down, on a genetic level, spiritually, through what he went through and what he put us through. Okay, so as I'm working through these things that I need to work through, it's affected every area of my life. But it all came back from back here. It's not what's happening now, it's how here affected here. So it's good to be present in the present, and it's good to be present in your body and in the moment. But spiritually and cognitively, you need to recognize what's happening here is not the issue. It's what's happened here that's affected you here. Okay, so some of this is going to trigger you, or may trigger you, when you start making this list, writing these names down. Not the specific incidents, but just the names can bring these things forward. And as somebody who has already been there, has been able to walk through this and is in a good place with this step, can actually bring that support about and get you to challenge you to look at things and looking at a different perspective. Because our mind, you do anything in your head. Have you made plans or said a speech or wanting to talk to somebody and you played it out in your head, and then when you're standing in front of somebody, a group of people, or if you're standing in front of another person, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, you say the words, you struggle for the words, and then you go, well, that didn't work the way I thought it was going to. Get out of your head.
Right.
All right, so our enemy is our mind. Okay, so that's the reason I said your brain can be your worst enemy, or it can be your greatest healer. But this emphasizes even more what Paul said, to renew our mind. That's the reason he said you have to renew daily. Renew our mind. Because our mind, our brain can take us all kinds of places that we shouldn't be going. So you connect fear, you connect all the anxiety in the mind. Nothing works out. It's just like walking in a snowstorm, a blinding snowstorm. You're just walking, but you don't know where you can't see anything. It clouds everything. But if you get all of that chaos from here out to here, and even doing this step of putting and recognizing, okay, Lord, if I write these names down, and I'm going to write these names down, but I realize, no, let's take that but out, and I realize that this is going to be triggering to me. I realize that I'm going to have all kinds of carnal feelings and emotions, and I'm owning up to that now. But with your strength and direction, Lord, I'm going to write these names down, and I'm going to accept that I'm going to be triggered. But I know that you're going to help me to work through this. Understanding yourself spiritually and understanding yourself carnally is exactly what you said, Sue. It's pulling apart. You can be spiritually strong, but carnally weak. And I mean carnally weak, still in your feelings and emotions, and they're still triggering you. But you have such a closeness with God and such a relationship with God that your first spiritual instinct is, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to grab onto him and I'm going to hold on to him because I know what's about to happen. So pulling yourself apart, and that's what I have been doing for the last I don't know, several months. And it feels really odd to do that. It's like, well, I'm one being, but your spirit your spirit belongs to the Lord, and your carnal is, yes, it's defiant, it is, we have to fight with this carnalness every day. Because this is the realm that we live in right now. And everything is based in that fear.
So going through the separation of that this week, been through, and I shared this with Julie the other night. The Lord, when you separate yourself and allow the Lord to show you things, and you sit in that division, because it's a strange place to be, but the Lord speaks to me in that place about the place. And he said to me, I'm healing that inner child that happened to you when you were there. And then he takes you there in the way that he does and heals you. But only through that process am I able to get people healed. But it's a place. It's a place.
And it's not like, okay, yeah, I get to do this, yeah, this is that, I'm going, no, they don't work that way. It can be a very dangerous place to be in. And this is where it's so much, our relationship with the Lord is so important, because we can't go into those dark places without His guidance, His wisdom, and Him leading us. But we have to pull the carnal out to say, Lord, I'm weak. I realize that. I can't do this without you. Jesus said you can't do anything without him.
That's where your trust comes in.
That's exactly right. If you don't trust anything or anybody, you gotta trust the Lord in that moment to say, Lord, okay. And we have a tendency sometimes to put him into the same category we put people in. Right? I don't like people. I really don't. I don't. And the more that I'm around people, the more I don't like them. All right? Now, the Bible says I have to love people. Now, and when I say what I say, it's just because I'm tired of people, and I'm tired of situations. Not everybody, not every situation, but a general thing is I'm getting to the point to where I'd rather be in a place by myself, processing by myself, than to be around other people.
Amen.
And I know that's temporary, because I have to process, I have to get to that better place that I need to be in. And right now, it's me and God that's trying to do that.
Yeah.
And just certain people that He's put in my life, like my friend that owns the ranch where I'm at. He's put her in my life, and He's put me in her life for this season, for this process. Right? And as you look and as people are scattered out throughout your life, it's like, okay, Lord, you put this person or this group or whatever into my life for this moment. Help me to not say anything. Help me to open my eyes, my ears, my understanding to see where I'm supposed to be there with them, or they're supposed to be there with me, or back and forth. I know part of the reason that the Lord has taken me out of the area is for that very reason, because I have healed a lot. I've grown a lot. I've grown a lot of understanding, but I can't be in this area and do the healing that I need to do the way that I need to do it. I needed to be with new people, and I needed to be in a new situation. So when you're, as you do this, people feel guilty in this place. You know, they feel guilty that it's like, Lord, I don't want to be around people. I don't want to be around. I don't want to interact with anybody right now. I know that that's the wrong thing, no, it's not the. Same time, no.
But there's also a line
Mhm.
that you have to, okay, when you get to a certain point, there's, and this with me, there's a place that you have to reach out. Otherwise
Oh,
you go
yeah.
under.
Oh, yeah.
And that is, when you get the revelation of that place,
Mhm.
you can be caught up in that. And that's when you need to reach out to the people that God has assigned to your life.
Mhm.
And you have to be careful of who that is.
Absolutely.
When you reach out to that person who has been assigned to your life in that spiritual way can help pull you up and out of that. Otherwise, if you, in that place of revelation, and I'm trying to say it in a way, I know you understand.
Yes, I do. I know where you're going with this.
You can get caught in that vortex.
Mhm.
And so if you go to the wrong place, it will pull you under.
Mhm. You get lost in it.
Yes.
You get completely lost in it. And for the ones of us that have difficulty reaching out for help, that,
Same.
Not to mention any names.
that God is putting us into that place to where he sometimes lets us go to there, almost to that edge, until we can reach out for help. Because that's one of the issues that we have to work through, is being able to ask somebody else for help. So even as much as I love my newfound family here, then, really getting to know them, even as much as they've helped me to feel welcome, as much as they've done for me that I've not asked them to do, as much as she and I are processing together, it's still difficult for me to, when I'm in this place, to say, all right, I need your help. So until I'm more in a financially stable place with my new job, I have to reach out to her husband. Because he says, whatever you need or whatever that we can do to help you, even though he said those words, I still will go through her to get to him instead of sitting down with him. But he's never gave me a reason not to trust him, and he is the one that stepped forward and said, we're gonna make her an apartment on this ranch, and we will help her to get through whatever she needs to get through until she finds a place. He did that, and he didn't have to, but I still have a difficult time sitting down with him and saying, okay, this is where I'm at, this is what I need. I'm still trying to fight that battle on my own. Now, she has a caretaker mentality, so she is struggling at this moment not to come to my rescue. So see how God uses situations and people, because he's trying to get her, God's trying to help her to say, you're not going to go to somebody's rescue. You're not going to tell them what they need. Because when she goes to rescuing, that means that she is distracting from her own things that she needs to do, and she struggles with a sense of feeling valuable to somebody. But God's trying to let her know that she's valuable within herself, and that he values her, and she doesn't have to keep doing things for people in order to feel valuable. So see how he's using both of our situations? So, she sent me a text the other night, because it's gonna take me a few paychecks to get back on my feet and get into that place of being more stable and being able to do what I need to do financially. And I've got all these plans and making out all of these goals. And I still need to reach out to him. So I told her, I wouldn't talk to him before I left. He had come in late, he had worked late, and I says, oh, I'm not gonna bombard him, he just got in from work. I said, I'll talk to him on Sunday when I get back. And I've thought about that since I've come back up here for this weekend, and it's like, I'm dreading it, and I shouldn't dread it. But you see, all of this is, you know, and so for the ones of us that have difficulty asking for help, God will put us into situations where we have to.
I know.
We have to ask for help.
Same.
Well, I'll give you a situation. My situation is similar to yours. Not exactly like yours, but similar. For the last 5, 6 years since my wife passed away and I lost the house, I lived in a van, lived in a blazer, lived in storage units, lived in a tent, everything. And never could afford rent anywhere because it's just too much money. And then when I got my Social Security, I had my first heart attack in November, and then a second one, and then some other hospital stays. But until Miss Shelley and her husband looked at me a few weeks ago and said, Daniel, we love you and care for you. You have a family and you have a place to stay over here. I can tell you that I understand what you're saying. It's like I go through the door and I go, do I deserve this? Do I deserve this here? Do I deserve the ceiling fans and the electricity? Do I deserve being able to wash my clothes or anything? And it's just that I'm having to relearn that it's okay to ask for help. All I'd ever asked Miss Shelley was, can I park in the parking lot and just sleep where I'm safe? Through the last couple of years. But when she told me I had a place to sleep inside and my needs and everything, and people, everyone in this room that cares about me. I'm sick, my health is not the best in the world. Hopefully it'll get better, it's trying, but I still don't feel worthy some days, that I don't want to be a burden to Pastor Shelley. I don't want to be a burden to anybody here. And I'm grateful and thankful for what they do to help me. I'm grateful and thankful that they care about me and help me. But it's all new, and it's a blessing. So I can understand what you're feeling of having a place to live and having your needs met and having things.
I worked up the courage to sit down with my friend the other night. She came up to the little apartment that they created for me and sat down with me, and I started brainstorming with her. Because even in that, I feel like what goes in the back of my mind is, how am I gonna repay them for everything they've done for me? How am I going to let them know just how much that I appreciate everything that they've done for me? And then somebody told me, said, don't feel like you have to repay them. What you need to do is pay it forward. To do for someone else what they've done for you. but let them know that you appreciate everything that they've done for you. And so it was like, I feel like, well, I'm taking advantage of the situation. I need to find a house as soon as I possibly can, you know? And then I went to, and then when I sat down with her, it's like, it doesn't make sense for me to look for a house right now. I don't have money to look for a house right now, you know? And it's like, so I said, letting her know that I feel, for the first time, truly feel that I have a family. Because and to somebody else, this may sound so simple, but to me, it's a big deal. I've done it with Mama, and Mama and I've done it together, but if I eat with them in the main house, and she's cooking, I'll go and we all work together in the kitchen together to prepare the meal. We're there around the island, and she gives each one of us something that she wants us to do while she's preparing something else, and he may have something on the smoker. When the food is ready and it's laid out and the plates are laid out and everything that you need, then we each get our plate of food and we go and we sit down at the table and we eat together.
Yeah.
We might share a little bit of the day, or the food is as good as it is most of the time, I mean, all the time. It'll get real quiet until people get finished eating, but then we'll carry on a conversation or ask each other questions. Then we'll sit there for a few minutes, and then we'll go back to our respective places of, I'll go back, I'm sharing a space with their daughter, so I'll go back, and then eventually she comes back in and she's not working that evening. So it is, and I've never had an experience of a family. This is my first experience with truly having a family. And I just turned 55 years old. So this is the first time in my life that I know what a family feels like.
That's God.
And yeah,
That's God.
it is.
We serve.
So in that brainstorming with her, I told her, I said, well, I have enough food here in my apartment. I can come and cook my own little meals and be here in my little apartment, or I can come to the main house and eat. I go out with her. One of the things that I do for her, because that her health just had surgery, is that I'll go and help with the horses. I never thought in my life I'd ever be able or understand what it means to go into a stable and work with horses, like daily care, to take care of them. And I'm just as comfortable with those horses as if I've been around them for the last 10 years. But she's teaching me how to do that. So in your process, I want to tell you this. I know Shelley well enough and Sue well enough, and as I've gotten to know this group, that if they didn't want to do what they do, they wouldn't do it. To see you succeed, to see you being able to stand on your own 2 feet at some point, I believe that that's what what God has called them to do, is to hold people up, because when they can't walk on their own, and until they can, that's what God has called them to do. So as you and I are in that same place of accepting that help, the people that God has placed in our life, and the ones that I'm working, that I'm with right now, God sent me to show them who God is, because they're not Christian people. And they don't walk in that faith. So my job assignment, my job is to show them that, and they don't realize that God has called them to do what they've done. And it is God showing them that He appreciates what they're doing. so that I can lead them to lead them to the Lord. So whenever those, because I have to do the same thing, whenever those doubts start crossing your mind, just remember that the Lord's called this group to do what they're doing. Because they're the only group in Fannin County that I know that does what, you are the only church in Fannin County that does what you do, right?
I don't know of any other church at Jasper, well, down in Jasper, the lady that had the homeless shelter. I don't know if you heard about this, she's a Christian, godly lady. She's like a clone of Pastor Shelley. 10 weeks ago, the county came in and took 22 people out of her homeless shelter because they said it wasn't good, put them in the street. She was given another place. They spent $100,000 getting it renovated. Oh, it's not good enough. There is really nobody else at any church at 100 around here that does what Pastor Shelley does or Sue does.
This is a sacred place.
Because
I believe that.
you go to church on Sunday and dress up and go there, the preacher preaches and go home. But if you're a homeless person that walks into a church, you're a drug addict that walks into a church, you're an alcoholic that walks into a church. Oh, no, you can't sit next to me, you can't sit here, you can't be here. No, you're not good enough to be here. And that's a lot of these churches, and a lot of these pastors. You have mental health problems, and you're getting help, and you walk into church and need something. Oh no, that's the devil. What's mental health? And you get medicine, you get help that God provides. But so many churches, they don't care. I can take you every night from LJ to Blue Ridge. In Blue Ridge, every night, there's 20 to 28 people who are senior citizens living in their vehicles that nobody cares about. Nobody cares about.
Yeah, we've had long discussions about things like that. And just to give you a note, one of my interns is, his wife is a 911 dispatcher for Warner Robins. And so they were gonna try to move up to this area, and she went to check into Fannin County to see if she could get on as a dispatcher. And, she has a technical term for it, and forgive me, I can't remember what that technical term is, but anyway, she tried, when she's in Warner Robins, she is able to get, help assist the officers in getting a person where they need to go to get the resources that they need. Fannin County doesn't allow it.
No, they
So
don't.
if you call into 911, the dispatchers are not allowed to, and I'll have to get the technical name that she put for it, but she explained it, the way she explained it. So you answer the call, and if there's nothing that you can do, you hang up, and that's the end of the story. Yeah, so Fannin County won't do any more than is absolutely necessary. That means going and answering the call, and then if they need to arrest somebody, they'll take somebody to jail. If they don't, then they won't, and then that's just the end of the story. So that came from her, and I know, since she's not from here, and she knows nothing really about the area, she called, and she asked questions, and that's what they told her. She said, I will not ever work in that county.
So they won't 1013 somebody, they make them find their own help?
Well,
Or I'm misunderstanding. what
yeah,
you-
they don't provide the kind of resources like, they don't want to fool with taking them to the hospital again, because Fannin Regional Hospital is not, and I'm trying to be as nice as I possibly can.
It's not a real hospital.
Thank you, you said it, I was thinking it and you said it. So they don't want to contend with the emergency room at Fannin Regional Hospital, because they don't take care of people when they bring them in.
They send them quickly to Union General, they send them to Chattanooga, they send them down to Jasper.
Yeah. But see, those officers don't want to cross those county lines to be able to provide that service because they're too busy. So Fannin is not a help you.
I'm glad Murphy's not that way.
Yeah, Murphy,
When I had the pneumonia, they made the decision to admit me right then and there, that day. And put me in there. I was in there for
when it
3
comes to
days.
mental health, this area is just, it is absolutely horrible. Horrible, this area is. But they don't want the training and the understanding of what they need to do in order to assist people either. I seen something that came through Facebook, and I was trying to remember where the church was at. There was this medical doctor, he's a licensed clinical social worker, but he's also a pastor. And he started going around to different churches. And I have no, and I'll have to see if I can pull it back up, but anyway, these churches are inviting him in to hold services to teach the church about mental health. And they're from Seventh-day Adventist. So the Seventh-day Adventist church is having this man come into their churches to teach them about trauma, to teach them about mental health and what they can do to help. Where's the rest of the churches?
It should be different than what,
Mm-mm.
and they're not about to step up.
With this, making a list of those who we feel that caused and or contributed to our trauma, understanding that forgiving them is not for them but for you. It is through the forgiveness that you can heal in fullness. With forgiveness comes enabling your voice, speaking your truth. You don't forget, but that forgiveness feels so empowering. Forgiveness means you can move on and not stay stuck in the mud of powerlessness. Right, so making a list of those you feel caused or contributed to your trauma. Take note of feelings and emotions. As you have worked through forgiving yourself, being able to forgive the people on your list, and then letting go. So as you're doing this and you're making a list of the people, persons or people, then take note of what you're feeling. Take note of it, write it down, and don't just write down, I feel some kind of way. That's not specific. As I'm doing my job where I'm working at now, the things that I've noticed, I told the trainer down there, I said, yeah, this is all kind of wrong. Now she uses that every time she turns around, she said, and so she trains a group of people and she'll send me a text or we'll sit down and talk for a minute and she goes, I'm using your words. She says, it's all kinds of wrong. So, get specific. Don't use those broad terms. Get into the specifics of what you're feeling as you write these people's name down. Do not write down the trauma. Don't write down the trauma. The trauma is not as important as what you're feeling that is attached to it. And we need to, at some point, if the Lord opens this door, to have a course of a time or two to learn how to separate the spiritual from the carnal. We need to learn how to do that. That's part of this process. We need to learn how to do it.
One other thing, in dealing with, this process, you have to realize it's a process.
It is, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
And that there's, like, what the Lord, and I shared this with you the other day, when he showed me, is like, there's a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
Pulling it off with all the hair, with all the everything, and it hurts. And you may not be able to take another step for a minute
Mm-hmm.
as that is uncovered, that rawness of that. And so, but it is a process, just like forgiveness and healing, they're all in layers. And so as you go through the process, that just knowing that there's a process, to me, it's like you think, wow, I'll forgive them, no. Then there's this, and then because where they hurt you here, there's a root system
Oh, yes.
that has been created in your life patterns, that when things are uncovered in that way, you may get one line of that
Root
broke
system.
off,
Mm-hmm.
but until you go through those layers and get to that root, you keep having the symptoms, the triggers.
It seriously is a serious note though to have somebody with you and to take note from people you trust because, or that you agree with, because seriously, for me personally, somebody could say, all right, Amy, have Shelley there. I don't know, when you say that, just put it out on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Let Shelley know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's done.
Mm-hmm.
I got a prayer warrior in my corner, I got somebody that loves me in my corner, and it can be done. It can happen like that. I'm not saying it will every time, I'm stating a fact, and I just want you to
Well,
know.
there's certain things in this process that the Lord will almost, it feels like an instantaneous deliverance.
Yes,
It'll, that's what it'll almost
it
feel
can
like.
be, it's that important to have somebody, sorry.
No, but there's other aspects that we need to be there. There's a reason that God has us there in that place, because there's something we need to learn about ourselves. So there's gonna be times when you do that it's gonna be, it'll be almost instantaneously. It's like, okay, God says, okay, I'm ready for you to release this, so let it go. And then there's gonna be times when you need to process something and you need to be in that process. And it's still good to have somebody with you, praying with you, or praying for you, or challenging you, or, you know, doing that brainstorming with you. But it may take a time, you know, I told one of my colleagues that was working with me, you know, I told him, I said, I'm so tired of dealing with this, I don't even wanna talk about it anymore. He says, well, if it wasn't still affecting you, it wouldn't be there. So we need to, he said that you need to process it, and there was many times he just stopped and he wouldn't say anything, he just looked at me. He wasn't giving me the answer, because it wasn't his job to give me the answer. His job was to hold space for me and be present with me, so that I could process. Then I got angry. Not at him, but it's because I keep contending with the same stuff over and over and over and over and over and over again. See, but that's let me know through these moments that I still have a difficult time letting go. So, see, the Lord's not gonna just, for me, in my process, things that He's instantly delivered me from, set me free from, but He's like, this is still continues to be an issue for you. So you're gonna stay right here and until you learn how to process this out. So that's where I'm, you know, at in that moment. But we really need to have some sort of course or some kind of study on how to separate the spiritual from the carnal. We really do, and learning how to build up that spiritual part of us so that we can keep our carnal part in check.
Yeah. So yesterday, I went home to my house after 8 months of being here,
Mm-hmm.
and prior to going, I asked Miss Deborah, like, Miss Deb, can you please help me, pray over my house? Because for so many years, I've been there for 8 years, and there's been a lot that's taken place in that house. Like, with my stepdad and my mom arguing, and my mom kicking my door in, and just me smoking weed in my room, and with my mom. I used to drink with her, I was 16 and got drunk. There was just so much that taken place in that house, and I didn't realize that, like, when she passed away, it, like, I just lost it. And then I locked myself in that room for so long, like, I don't know what it was that kept me in that place, but I was in a very, very dark place, and I felt like I opened some doors in my room where I was just stuck all the time. Like, I don't know what, like, it made me feel like I never wanted to be there. Like, I felt safe everywhere but home until I opened up so many doors of drug addiction and alcoholism that it just followed me wherever I went. So I got to a place where I just couldn't survive. I couldn't live anywhere. I could just live in my car with myself, and even then I didn't feel safe. Like, just the fear that taken place after all of the deaths, it affected me really bad. But I did get that house prayed, like, we went in and prayed, and I opened up some drawers, which is really weird, but I even opened up these two little drawers that I have, and I laid my hands in there and prayed inside of the tiny drawers in my dresser in my room. And that was my safe place. I brought my friends there because if they had issues, they'll come stay in my room. I had somebody, one of my best friends almost OD'd, and she said, Joel, I need to wake up. She said, every hour I have to wake up. I went and picked her up. I said, bring your car and park it outside of the apartment complex that you're at, and leave your car there overnight, and I'm gonna pick you up, you come with me. And I woke up every hour to make sure she was still breathing. And it was just a lot that taking place there, and I did get it prayed over, but that was probably the scariest thing I've ever been through in my life, where I would look out the window watching and scared somebody was gonna kill me every single day, because I was so afraid of just everything. And there was a lot of people who I thought I could trust that betrayed me, that's been in my house. And the result of the betrayal and just the type of sneaky stuff that people do in Atlanta is they plot silently. They'll plot to kill people very silently, and you just never know. You know what I'm saying?
Alright,
But that, it did affect me very badly.
well, the Lord wants you to know that He wants you to see where He's brought you from. So now when you see those, and when you walked into that room and you experienced everything that you experienced, it didn't overtake you or overwhelm you. It was present. See, this is where we've got to understand it was present. And it was there. And you acknowledged that it was there. But your first instinct now is, I'm praying, and I'm praying over it. Lord, I'm giving this to you. But now you can look back and you can go, well, there's a reason, Lord, you helped me to survive. There's a reason I'm still here through all of that I went through. So you brought me here, so there's a purpose that you still have for me in this moment. And see, this goes to, so what you just did is just summed up everything I just taught. Because you went in there, you were triggered. But it didn't overwhelm you and it didn't overtake you, but you acknowledged that it was there. Because those memories, when they came back in, it's like, I stood at that window wondering if it was gonna be the last time that I stood. I was on this bed doing drugs and drinking with my own mother. I acknowledged that. Those drawers, no matter what you held in those drawers for you held some sense of significance for you, but you were able to put your hands in those drawers and you were able to say, Lord, all right, touch these drawers. You know, whatever's in there or whatever doesn't need to be in there, you take that out, whatever it was that you prayed. So you just summed up in that few minutes everything I just taught. Because when you're triggered, it does, you can be in that place of, I don't have to be here. I don't have to accept this. It doesn't have to overtake me. But I can acknowledge that it's there, it happened, it was real. But I'm not consumed by it. I think that just, that helped, that just makes my spirit happy. But do you understand what I'm saying? Do you, and I want your spirit to comprehend this. I want your spirit to grasp that concept. You're able to go back into the places that some people wouldn't have been able to survive, whether it was physically, mentally, or emotionally, or all three. You walk right back in, as I call it, you walked right back into hell, but you didn't stay,
You walked out.
and you walked back out.
You took authority over those.
Yes.
And didn't leave Satan nothing left to throw at you. He's got nothing left
Oh,
now.
so before, when I first found out, I don't remember the timeline, but I had a dream about my house, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a black snake in the front door. Clear as day, black snake. And then my front yard was a swamp. It looked like a swamp. It looked like, it was very just nasty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw my stepdad, and then I saw my uncle. But I don't remember if it was me, but for some reason, I don't know if it was me or my uncle, but they were trying to present me something. Like, it was a belt or something, like a snakeskin belt, and I put it on. And then I lifted a log, and then all of it drained. And the swamp it wasn't a swamp anymore, it all drained out and it cleared up back to normal.
That's
So
awesome.
when I told Miss Deborah about all of the weird stuff, I'm like, Miss Deborah, I had a dream about a snake being in the front door. She prayed like I haven't seen before, and I was like, oh, it must be serious in here. And I just feel so blessed that to have somebody that you can call and be like, look, we don't need an exorcist. I don't need it because before I learned how to take authority over things like that, I ran and got some saved because I had something tap my shoulder in that house. And I was like, oh heck no, and my dad didn't think that it was a big deal. He's like, no, it's not just that serious, it's fine. They just want to be your friend. And I'm like, dude, you think it's a joke? This thing tried to kill me. So, she took authority over that house, and I walked out. I was kind of scared. I'm like, ooh, if we just stirred some stuff up in there, and walked out. And a lot of people don't believe that works, but
It works.
people said, oh, we can just put some spices around your house and all four corners of your house. And I
No,
said, no, that is not
Jesus.
what, I said, the power of Jesus Christ's name is how you get it out. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt small in that place. I felt small walking in there. But Miss Deb stood so strong for me when I was like, she was like, yeah! See, I'm behind
Did
her.
she go with you?
She did.
She did, okay, I had a friend that did the same thing for me when I went head to head, my experience, I'll have to share that with you sometime. But I was in the place where this was happening, and she was actually in the dorm room. And when I got back, she says, I wanna know what happened, and I told her what happened, and she said, I've been out on my knees since you've been gone. So sometimes even you can feel people
right.
praying, you
Yes.
can feel, even if they're not present with you. I'm glad that she went with you, but I was just curious because, you know, you can tell that, because if she hadn't been praying, I don't think I could have went through what I went through, but, yeah. Yeah, well, he said, you know, Bible says that we have authority. And he said, and it also says that that God gave Jesus all power and all authority in heaven and in earth. So that name carries a lot, that there's just not anything that can come against that name. And when we go in and in the authority and the confidence that God has given us in that name, to use that name. You know, I've seen on Facebook, somebody had posted, it said that, something about a mountain being in our way, that God gives us the grace that we need to climb the mountain. Bible doesn't say that. Bible says you speak. He gave us enough authority. He said you speak to this mountain. He didn't tell us to go over it. He
No.
didn't tell us to go around it. He said you
That's right.
speak
To it.
to this mountain and say, be removed.
Be removed, go back to see where you came from.
Mm-hmm. So we don't have to have grace to climb a mountain. We don't have to have grace to go, to go through what we go through. We have grace and we have the authority to move it out of our way. So I didn't say anything about moving it. He told us to speak to the mountain.
Yes, he did.
He said, you speak to the mountain and I'll remove it.
There's a man.
So we take the scripture and we don't walk in the authority that we've been given, but I'm glad to hear that. I'm just,
The man that once said, Jesus, please do something, please do something. Jesus said, I did, I created you.
I died for you.
Right.
I died for you,
I
so
died
you would
for
have
you,
my
so
name to
you-
do. Mhm.
It's such a big, like a serious thing, because I knew that I had such a great amount of fear, and I felt like what was in there was feeding off of my fear.
Mhm. And it will.
And it
Remember,
will.
Satan attacks us in the places that we feel most weak and most vulnerable. So that's the reason the Lord has to take our carnalness and he has to walk us through every fear that we have. So Satan doesn't have anywhere to pull into that stronghold, because he does. That's exactly the things that we fear the most. And wasn't it Paul said that at one point when he was going through something, he said that the thing that I feared the most has come upon me?
Yes.
Alright, so the things that we fear, Satan will use against us, right? I at one point, I was afraid that my dad, that was my greatest fear, that my dad would die and I wouldn't know anything about it. But not only did God take care of that situation, he let me be through that whole entire process, be there when he passed away, and to help plan the funeral. And he says, and that's what he told me. He said, this is your closure. This is your closure.
Yes.
And he said, that thing that you feared, that you wouldn't know about this, he said, I did this, and I made sure that you were here. I mean, it was a miracle that things happened the way that they did. So Satan plays off of our fears. So again, that's where we've got to renew our mind, and we've got to separate that carnal from that spiritual. so that we can walk more in that spiritual, because we've got to crucify that flesh and learn how to submit our will to God's will. We shouldn't have any will of our own. We should have no will to do anything outside of what God wants to do with us. And we've got to walk in that confidence that we have the authority to do that now. And I'm not just saying this to you, I'm saying it to myself, because I have to do this. I have to remind myself of this a lot. Because it's like, God, why, I said, if you wanted me down here, Lord, why have you not provided a house for me? Well, he's not finished using me at the ranch.
Right.
He's just gotten into doing what he's doing with me at the ranch. There's a reason for me being there, and I just need to take a deep breath and go, okay, Lord, use me. You know, because these are people that I care about, and if he's gonna use me to lead them to him, I need to quit worried about me and get out of my own head and go, okay, Lord, this is about you
Yes.
and what needs to be done. So, you've come a long way. You really, really have. I'm proud of you, Jill. I really am. And I know God is too. I feel that. I feel that he is. Well, thank you for being here today, and so we're on 8, we've got, and I believe it's the 27th, we've got step 9, then after that, we've got 3 more steps. And so as we complete the steps, and I've told Shelley this before, even after we complete the steps, you guys are walking through, I've gotten some of the sweetest notes. People that have sat in this room have sent me messages and sent me the sweetest notes of how they've been able to apply some of these steps when something has happened with them, and it took them back to it. So I'm just so honored that God is doing this. So, but even after we do the 12th step, I'm still available. I'm still, any questions that you have, anything that you need to reach out for, please do it. And if there's something else that we can do and get together and do later on, another course or another teaching, let me know. Okay?
Yeah. We enjoy having you come.
Okay, I enjoy being here.
Always.
Very much.
I enjoy it. So, Sue, will you have our closing prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you